I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Italian Spotlight. Joining me today is Sonya Sharp, who is a Calgary City Councillor and a candidate for mayor in the next election in October. Thanks, Sonya, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for having me.
Well, buongiorno. And so,
Buongiorno.
so people might say, why do we have someone with the last name Sharp on Italian Spotlight? Explain your background and your Italian heritage for us.
Yeah, so I am first generation Canadian, I could say. My mom and dad both immigrated here from Italy. My mom came from Napoli, and you can see that photo behind him actually at her house doing this morning. And my dad came from a little town outside of Rome. So yes, my maiden name is Palombi, and I grew up in Calgary, and born and raised Italian in Calgary. It's a journey, and
Yeah.
you know what that's like, Mario.
Yeah. So were you like the typical like very strong Italian family in terms of its roots, in terms of culture and everything?
Yeah, like I would say we were, and like we were traditional. I wouldn't say my parents were super traditional when it came to being strict. Now, my older sisters might disagree with me when it comes to my dad. When guys would pick them up for a date, he might
Oh yeah.
pop by in like, a lumberjack jacket and an axe because he was chopping wood in the back. But I would say my parents were kind of lenient when it come to certain things, but we were traditional. Like I brought some props, Mario, because you'll
Oh,
appreciate this. The
okay.
rite of passage as an Italian child is to be
Yes.
able to make coffee in this machine and get it perfect and
Yeah.
not have it boil over on the stove.
Yeah.
And learning how to play traditional Italian cards, which,
Yeah.
scopa and things like that. But we as children, and we like to like play around with our family, we always said, well, we're getting Italian cards, but they would be real traditional cards with Italian photos on them.
Yeah.
But I would say we were we pasta was a thing, obviously still is. I've kind of had that tradition with my family and my boys. They
Yeah.
love pasta, they love coming to nonas, they love talking to Nono. Soccer is a big deal in our house,
Yeah.
and it was for my parents. But yeah, we're pretty traditional in sense of keeping the culture going. That's important. Culture is important in any family,
Yeah.
and I'm happy that there's still such a strong Italian community in Calgary.
Now, my good friend Tony Spallatini of
Mhm.
Spalombos once said to me, he said, "Yeah, we I felt like we were kind of different than the other people growing up. Did you
Yeah,
feel that way as a child, especially going through school?" And
yeah. Our lunches were different.
yeah, that's true.
Our lunches were always different. And it's funny because I'll do that to my kids. I'll be like, take some pasta for lunch and like eat with the fork. And the one thing we always had in our lunches was a napkin. I like my mom always made sure there was a napkin, and things like that. So things were a little bit different. The other thing that was different is dinners. You invite a friend over that doesn't maybe have the same tradition as you. It's loud and we all talk all over each other, but
Yeah,
we're all in each other's conversations and we've all responded to each other. And people would be like, I have no idea what is happening, but this is so much fun.
yeah.
So that was kind of different. We had a curfew. So, we would try to make sure you call me, my mom would say, when you get to there and when you leave there. And so you'd be trying to like find a cell phone or a quarter growing up. You know what that was like, finding a quarter at a payphone to call your mom saying, I'm at Coconut Joe's. And I'm just,
Oh,
yeah, right. So
oh.
those are the things that like we did that was different than the average, maybe, friend that we had, but it was fun. And there's so many great memories. And, I have a younger brother. And so we have a big family. And so getting together when we can as a family, it's not, oh yeah, we're gonna have, family dinner. It's like a mini wedding.
Yeah.
Your family's coming, then there's the husbands and the kids and the in-laws, and you're bringing everybody. So Christmases are big. And I think it's important to cherish those moments because, life is short.
Yeah. Did your parents have like I guess a cantina in the basement
Oh
with
yeah.
uh
Yeah, the
wine,
can
sausages, and all that stuff down there?
Yeah, cantina. My dad would make his own wine. You would literally go to the basement as a child and feel like you would smell. you could get drunk just walking downstairs at
Yeah.
Grapes, and you'd watch them press the wine. He pressed his own wine. My mom would do tomatoes. The cantina thing makes me laugh because, we would at Easter time, you would have a lamb down there, and you would just not want your friends to go through that door and just think something totally different of you. But the cantina would, if it wasn't in the basement now because your parents are older, it's the pantry in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And literally, you open up my mom's pantry and we're ready for the next war. And
I
I'm telling you, I think every can of tomato, Nutella is a thing,
yeah.
obviously, in our family.
Yeah.
And so the boys know I hardly buy Nutella because Nona has it. And I have the pleasure of having my parents live upstairs in my secondary suite. So the boys, they'll sneak away and they'll grab Nutella and they'll have their snack before bed. But I might indulge in that too. So
Okay. So, have you been to Italy?
Few times now. I haven't
Yes.
been probably well, I haven't been since the early 2000s. But I'd like to go back. I'd like to take my kids to see, the Campania where my dad is from.
Yeah.
My mom being from a big city. Well, she's a small town, but it's so close to Naples. It's different there. The culture's different there. The
Yeah.
food, the coffee. I know, like drinking espresso in Italy is very different than drinking espresso here. So we it's important for us to like talk about those things and eventually go. But we do like I'll drop a name here, but we do frequent Spinelli's a lot and all the other Italian stores. Each Italian store in Calgary has a unique thing,
Yeah.
right? So you have to go to Scarpone's for certain things and you have to go to Lina's for certain things. And so we'll travel out to Spinelli's when we're in the deep southeast. And so it's really it's just a part of who we are. And I think, showing your family and your kids that in their generation, it's great. My boys are taking Italian in school,
Oh,
which,
cool.
yeah, the one's in St. Francis. So coming up to tell Nona that he got certain grade on his Italian test. And now that he's in St. Francis, some of the teacher will say, I know you. And he'll say, I think you know my mom.
Yeah. How's your
So
Italian?
it's not too bad, I would say. I will say that you don't use it, you can lose it.
Yeah.
But I definitely can have those conversations with family in Italy. And when you're talking to your kids in public and you want to get mad at them, the Italian somehow comes out really well. Yeah.
Uh, what I'm just going to ask you separately, but what do you
Sure.
think you learned from your mom?
You know, what I learned from her, and I still do from her, is it doesn't matter what kind of job you have. Everyone's welcome in the house for dinners. I think she learned a lot from her father. That was, it didn't matter if you were a blue collared worker or a white collared worker. Everyone has to eat, everyone's welcome, and you share. And that was one thing with my mom. It was, and still my friends call her Mama Maria. Every time they come over, they're like, how's your mom doing? How's Mama Maria? And they'll go upstairs for some Nutella. And it's just a warm, welcoming home that the kitchen table always has food on it. And so I think those are really important characteristics that I've learned from my mom and also from my dad, the hard work. Our
Mhm.
parents worked hard for
Yeah.
everything they've had. And they might not have a lot of things to show because of that, but that's okay. Because the one thing that is you can't put a price tag on is the love. And that was one thing that I would say that we learned a lot from our family. And I know that my siblings feel the same way, and we can see it even when I go to my sister's, all of a sudden you walk in, there's food on the table, or
Yeah.
my brother, it's food on the table. And it's like, it's just a warm, welcoming thing. And you don't leave the house without eating. I'll tell you that right now. If you're coming to my mom's, be
Yeah.
prepared to eat
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter, just eat it.
What what was your favorite food that your mom made?
My mom, it's gnocchi.
Oh,
My favorite
oh,
dish that my
oh.
mom makes is gnocchi. I will say that my boy's favorite dish is lasagna, and I make that. I think I've mastered the lasagna, but the gnocchi, no, I have not mastered.
Uh,
I would say that, and linguine a vongole, that is
mm,
my Christmas thing.
yeah.
And so, if I'm coming to a restaurant, the linguine a vongole, I will be a critic for. So,
Oh, I hear you.
those are my two favorite things to eat, and and then the desserts. I mean, how do you even pick?
Yeah, no kidding.
How do you pick?
Okay, so I'm curious when we're talking about eating because I
Hmm.
think every family and every region of Italy has its own little intricacies, right? And little things. So is there anything that you did not want to eat that your parents had?
Lamb. I refuse
Really?
to eat lamb at Easter. Yeah, I
Oh
just couldn't
wow.
do it. I still can't eat lamb. I don't know if it's just because of the animal. I don't know. I just can't. Everything else, I'm fine. I can do everything, even like some of
Well,
the fish that's like, like the bacala. I can do
oh
that
yeah.
a little bit, right? But the lamb on Easter tradition, I would be like, is there a separate dish that I could have? But I wasn't the only one. I had cousins that were also a little bit older and a little more strong-willed than I was.
Oh yeah.
That would be like, I'm not eating that either. So we
Well,
won.
here's mine. Although
What's yours? What's yours?
although apparently I ate this like crazy as a kid, but
Hmm.
now no way. Chicken's feet.
Oh yeah, no. My parents didn't really make that. That's funny. We had this conversation the other day
Oh,
about, we make our own bone broth. You're gonna make the
yeah,
chicken
yeah,
soup with the
yeah,
pastina because the chicken soup with the pastina, it solves everything.
yeah.
And so the chicken feet, no, we didn't do that. But the bacala would come around or, we do the agnello and I'm like, I'm not eating that. And
Uh,
then it was funny because if you didn't want to eat the lamb, doesn't matter how old you are, you're sitting at the kids' table. It's
uh,
like, sorry, the adults that are eating lamb are going to sit here. You can sit over here at the kids' table and you could be like 32. It's
yeah.
okay.
Uh, when do you recall the first time you had wine? Or
Yeah, yeah, I do. I was my dad's and I was, we were of age at that point, but I would be like, is this even legal? Like,
yeah,
can you even drink this? It was so strong. And then I think, I'm beginning to believe that our parents did that so you wouldn't drink.
yes,
They would give us their wine. So you'd
yeah.
be like, oh, what is this? And then you would be like, and then lemon jello, like, well, I like
Oh,
a good lemon jello. And
yeah,
we would try to make that. But I swear they would give us that wine so that you wouldn't drink it. And I'd be like, I'm never drinking wine because it
yeah.
would just burn your stomach.
And of course, grappa though. So
Oh, grappa, that's a whole other situation. Yeah. It's so true though. Like, 'cause I think the last time my dad pressed wine with my brother, my kids were little. I have a photo of it and I don't have it with me. And it's such a special time because they were learning to make it. And then I thought, please don't tell the kids at school that you made wine with your nono or the teachers because like things have changed and you just wonder what they're thinking. Why
yeah.
is this 4-year-old telling me that they make wine with their no-no? It's just part of the culture, but you have to be careful.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. So when you growing up, I find a lot of stuff on on the internet that's kind of
Hmm.
amusing
Hmm.
when it comes to
Yeah.
Italians, right? And one of the things they show all the time is the plastic on the sofas. Did you have that?
Oh, yes. Yes. I think it was like even just a decade ago, we took the plastic off the chairs.
Yeah,
And and then when we had babies, they put the the straccia, like obviously the tea towel on the chair so your kids wouldn't get the chair dirty. I'm
yeah,
like,
that's right.
that's okay. They're just going to get the carpet dirty.
Yeah,
So, yes, the plastic on the couch, and we used to pick at it. Like as a child, you'd sit there, and how uncomfortable was that?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. No.
think, you don't feel good, and you're going to go sit on the plastic couch with a blanket. And you think back and you just laugh because I do tell these stories to my kids and they're like, no way. And we just watched a show on Netflix called Nona's,
Oh,
and with Vince Vaughn. And so if you got Italian descent and you're like, you got to watch this movie. My kids were on stitches, like are in stitches because the fire alarm that goes off in the house because you overcook something or
yeah.
something's burning and they're taking the cloth from the children and they're waving the fire alarms so the fires don't come. So yeah, the plastic couches. Who can forget those?
Now, the other thing, the other staple, and I must admit, as a young boy who was kind of mischievous and getting into a lot
Mm.
of trouble, I was the recipient of this many a time, but the wooden spoon.
Oh, the cucurella. The cucurella. Yep, the spoon, the wooden spoon. And okay, I'm guilty as a mother and as Italian. I always joke like that too. I say, if you boys don't get upstairs, like I'm getting the cucurella, and they just laugh at me.
Yeah.
And so, because my kids are bigger than me now, so they're just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, mom, that's so cute." But the cucurella, it's just a thing, and we laugh about it. How many wooden spoons do you think our parents went through?
Oh
You
my
know?
gosh.
And the real good wooden spoon,
Yeah.
not the ones that, like the ones you get from the Italian store. Those ones are made out of a whole situation of wood. You can't break those things if your life depended on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh yeah, the cucurella.
Yeah, I stopped getting that when I think at one point when my mom was gonna start swinging it, I
Oh yeah,
grabbed it and
grabbed it and
I
broke it.
actually broke it in half, and that was the end of that. So
Yeah, it was the end of that. I know, but there's ones I just don't understand how they don't break. There's something else
yeah,
in those.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in Silver Springs. We
Oh
grew
yeah,
up
that's
like,
right.
yeah,
Silver
Silver
Spring,
Springs, and then we moved to Scenic Acres. We were very much Northwest kids,
and you were
and
obviously Francis kid, and
I was a Francis kid. Yeah, I know. My oldest son goes there. I know my second will probably go there, and it's just, it was it's just you just followed the whole journey. My sisters went there. Actually, my sisters went to St. Helena, then they went to St. Sylvester for a bit too. We went to St. Vincent. So there's lots of routes, and
yeah,
I think, that's just it's it's so great to have that. I love driving around neighborhoods and having memories. I know the Silver Springs pool just opened I think, a couple weeks ago or a week ago. And I'm like, yes, I'm like, time
yeah,
to hit the pool with the kids.
yeah.
And it was just somewhere where we spent so many summers where, my mom and dad would be like, go to the pool, hang out there. And, because they worked, my mom worked at a restaurant in Silver Springs. It was an Italian restaurant
Hmm.
by All West, where All West was. And then, fun fact, she worked at Libretza for a little while
Oh wow.
with Marco. Yeah. And my dad just did construction, like he
Yeah,
was, he was hardworking construction man. And we learned the trades in the family. And there was never, I would say, a nail that popped out of walls that my dad didn't fix. And, would very much analyze houses he walked in that he didn't build. And we used to laugh about that. And even the
Mhm.
house I built, and he was here for a while, and he would analyze and he'd be like, you need to tell your contractor this, or you need to do this with this.
Yeah.
You just laugh because it's just who they are and they'll never change. And you have to just cherish that.
Yeah. Now I know, I'm from Ottawa originally,
Yeah.
and Ottawa has a very strong Italian
Mhm.
community. Montreal, Toronto, obviously. You mentioned Spinelli's, and
Mhm.
their head office up north in Edmonton, very strong. Uh,
Very strong.
it's very strong. What do you think about the Italian community in Calgary and uh,
Mhm.
where it's at?
I think that, I know we have a smaller Italian community. I think it was smaller as the years have gone by, sorry.
Eh,
But I think it's important to start cherishing that, for generations like mine that are more involved with the, Italian sportsman dinner and sportswoman dinner, the, Italian club in Bridgeland. We got to bring that back a little bit. And I know that in Bridgeland, years ago, they would have like culture night, and it wasn't just Italians, it was the Lebanese community, the Portuguese community. They
uh,
would get together. We're all this like, and we might have different flags behind us, like you can
yeah,
see that, but our cultures are very similar. And
yeah,
actually a lot of people would say growing up they thought, I was Lebanese because we just all hang out together, Portuguese.
yeah,
We would all hang out. We were a group that hung out because we all had the same type of parents. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I think what it's important is we need to continue growing that culture in Calgary and not forgetting that. And, I tell that to my boys all the time. I'm like, you have such a strong Italian background and culture, and you need to cherish that. And they meet kids in the schools that have the same background and culture, and it's important. And it's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. I know that when, our like generations of families moved here, they kind of were embarrassed of who they were. They shouldn't be. You should never be embarrassed from where you came from, wherever that is. And it's who you are. And
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm at council, I might talk a little quickly and I'll be like, sorry, I'm Italian, sorry you didn't understand what I just said. Or, you might just about to drop an Italian word in there or a Spanish word because there's a little bit of both. And I'm like, sorry about that. And I'm like, why am I even apologizing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What do
yeah,
you
I think
think?
we need to grow.
What do you think you learned by being Italian
Mhm.
that has helped you on your life's journey, and especially in your professional journey?
Yeah. It's funny. They say Forza the Azzurri, right? Be strong, the soccer team. And one thing that I look back at, not just my parents, my grandparents, and a little bit of learning about my great grandparents. They were strong people. My dad's side lived over 100, and I know that my great grandparents on his side also lived long life. Is stay strong, stay true to you are. And when you go to Italy, they're not embarrassed who they are. They're strong and they're resilient and they work hard and they enjoy life. So I'll say that as I get older, one thing I will say, and I think it's because I've experienced quite a few things, and being in politics is, yes, this is a job and we work hard every day at what we do, but you need to enjoy your life, and that's important. And you need to have that balance. Because my Nona, she was making cheese still. I have videos. I'm 96 in
Wow.
Italy. I know. And I remember my uncle from here, my mom's brother, went there and he came back and he goes, I cannot believe that I saw. That's literally, I just did it. I cannot believe. That's how they talk. Uh, I came back, he came home back here to explain that my Nona, like Nona Maria, was making cheese at 96, gets up at 4, and just a strong woman. And, she had 9 kids. That is, talk about living, like that's longevity. And if we can live that long and make that cheese and enjoy a glass of wine in our 90s, that's living life. And you've worked for it.
Wow. All right. So super. Well, thanks so much,
Thank
Sonia,
you.
for joining
Thank you,
us today.
Mario. I appreciate it. It was so much fun. I hope we can do this again.
You
And
bet.
it was nice to learn that for you as well.
Okay, then.
Thank
That
you.
was Sonya Sharp, who is a Calgary City Councillor and a candidate for this fall's mayor election. And I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Italian Spotlight. Thanks for joining us today.